Yes. Thank you, Prosty, for agreeing to do this.
Sure.
Sharing your story with us.
Okay.
I think the more we share our stories, the more we avoid distortion
Yes.
of our own stories.
Mm.
Now your story starts way back in Pietermaritzburg.
Yes.
Can you please take us back? How was it? How was the environment at home?
The environment at home, you know, I was blessed to have a mother that was always cognizant of the fact that apartheid was an evil system. So she was a political activist. She was a member of the Liberal Party in those days. She was a member of the Black Sash. And then she also was involved with things like, she was a lecturer in English. And so she used to teach adult literacy. And she had there was a group there called Kupugani, you know. So I was always aware that this system that we were living in was not so good. And I'm thankful for that, because the environment, let's say, when I went to school, you know, it was divisive, and there were very conservative views with a lot of people that, you know, were my schoolmates. So she always kept me on track in terms of life philosophy. And so later on, when I wanted to leave the country, she understood, you know. And my father was an architect, so he was a creative, and he also loved music. So I think from my father I got quite a lot of the musical influence, and from my mother I got the social responsibility aspect of growing up.
So is it through your father that you got introduced to the guitar?
The guitar? No, actually, you know, I have two sisters and one brother.
Okay.
And so they were playing guitar. And then I kept on telling my mother, "Mommy, I want to play guitar." And she says, "No, your fingers are too small." Fingers are too small.
Yeah.
Until someone came along that played guitar and said, "No, you can get a 3/4 size guitar."
How old were you?
That was 10.
Okay.
Yeah, 10 years old and 11. But before that, I was in the choir since, you know, the age of 8 or so. 7, 8, when I first started school. They had quite a good choir I was at Pelham Primary School.
Okay.
Yeah, and they had
Pietermaritzburg.
in Pietermaritzburg, yeah, Scottsville.
How long was your stint with the guitar?
I know it's lasted kind of on and off forever. So I still play guitar when I do recordings. Sometimes I play guitar on that.
I'd love to.
So it's
Just point out some recordings.
Yes, I certainly will. Yeah, I think mainly acoustic guitar and fingerstyle is what I started on, and listening to the folk music like Paul Simon, the Beatles, Cat Stevens, all that. You know, yeah.
One would assume that since you are from Pietermaritzburg, you listen to a lot of Maskandi as well during that time.
Yes, yeah. Well, you know, the thing is that, like, the Maskandi guitarists, you don't see that anymore. But I remember them vividly, like every day after work, just walking to see maybe their girlfriends or whatever. But there was so much music and guys just walking and playing guitar. And then obviously there was a woman that worked for us, Maggie Gaza. And so she used to play, you know, the radio in the, you know, in her room at the back. And so I remember Batanga.
Okay.
Yeah, from there, Soul Brothers and stuff like that. So yeah, that was very much on the periphery. I never learnt it consciously, but it was there while I was growing up.
Would you say you never left that your first encounters with Mpakana, those early days?
Well, you know, it wasn't just Mbaqanga, but it was also like the singing, you know, like Zulu people really sing for me.
Yes.
I remember I went to like there was a stadium there. I'm not sure why we were there, but I just heard this whole stadium singing Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, and it was just momentous. I mean, it was just like the roof was exploding. Wow. So there was that music as well. There was a lot of music around all the time, you know.
I see.
But my father was listening to the Western classics, you know. He was listening to Telemann and Bach, Mahler. He liked Mahler, and my mother liked Brahms. So there was all this music going on as well in the house. So it was the pop, and then this, and then the Maskandi guitar and Batanga outside. It's only a bit later when I got to my teenage years, and I went to school at Michael House. And then I remember there was an Australian teacher there, and he took us to see it was then Dollar Brand concert at the university in Pietermaritzburg. And that was, you know, very formative for me. As well as I saw him, and then I saw a concert by Morris Goldberg.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that was when I decided I liked the tenor, because Morris Goldberg played all of them. He played the alto, the tenor, and soprano. But I gravitated towards the tenor in his playing at that time.
I see. Around what year was this when you switched to the tenor saxophone?
Well, when I went to school, I started playing recorder.
Okay.
So I did. When I went to Michael House, and then I said, look, I want to do music because I see in the curriculum there's music. They said, but this school has been around for 100 years. There's only one person that's ever done music here. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah.
And I said, no ways. Well, I want to be number 2 then. So I did music for matric on recorder.
Okay.
And then when I went to university, I went to Durban, and I started my course, and I was doing recorder and cello as a second instrument. And then halfway through the course, I said no. And then I changed to saxophone and flute.
So when you went to Natal University, were you in the scene already at the time? Like playing gigs?
Yeah, we used to have a group called Staple Diet. Ooh. Yeah, that was my first group. Okay. So we were playing like a variety of stuff. We did some reggae, we did some rock stuff, but we also did some experimental. And by that time I was listening to, you know, quite a lot of Dollar Brand as he was in those days. Yes. And some Masekela. So I just got those influences there. And then also my brother-in-law, who married my sister, he had a whole lot of records, you know. So he gave me Curtis Mayfield, he gave me Weather Report, he gave me Charles Mingus. Okay. So he had a whole lot of albums that he just gave to me, and then I started really listening at that time when I was at Michael House.
Oh, I see. So who would you say were some of your peers, saxophone players you were close to that time?
That time, I liked Dexter Gordon. I loved the sound of Dexter Gordon, and I loved the way that he was so unhurried about whatever he did, and was musical, you know. So I think almost Dexter Gordon can cross the genre, because you don't have to be a so-called jazz lover to really identify with what he's doing. I liked him, and then I like him. It's not that I liked, I still do. Yeah. I listened quite a lot to Sonny Rollins. Then I listened to John Coltrane. I listened to Chris Lieb.
Okay.
Very melodic player. He did that album with Warren Marsh. I don't know if you know it, Apogee. And that was produced by Steely Dan, the guys from, and they were really, often I've been to live gigs, and the sound engineer, like I remember Eric Clapton, we were in a band in Zimbabwe at some time, and the that was the reference material, was Steely Dan. So Steely Dan, in terms of production, I've always looked on as they're really quite amazing. But they used to go crazy. You know, apparently they spent 4 days in a studio once deciding when the fade should be and for how long. Yeah. But anyway, so it was them. And then I'm not sure when I got I got introduced to Mankunku and Duke Makazi.
Okay.
And Duke Makazi, I have great respect for that man. And it's just a pity that he did not record much more than he did, because I think him and Bra Winston, they were the torchbearers there in tenor. And then look, when I went to Botswana, you know, one of the great albums that I used to listen to over and over again was that Dollar Brand +3, you know, the Kippy we keep da 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 da. I mean that's a classic album, and also with Kippy, it's sad that he didn't record more.
No, true. I feel the same. I've seen some tapes from the SABC archives.
Okay.
Which Duke Makasi's nephew has. Yeah, he was quite something else.
Is it?
There's one tape where the big band was led by Bravik Tantoni. There's a tape where he's trading fours with Prabhan. Yeah.
It's amazing. Huh? Yeah.
Did you have a personal relationship with
Duke? You know, it was 1988, I think, when I was based in Zimbabwe, and then the Bua tour that Brakaifus was heading. You know, they toured all over Africa. I don't know if you know it. It was a musical called Bua.
Oh, Bua, no.
Bua, yeah.
Bua, okay.
Yeah, so there was a troupe of about 30-something people. So when they came to... Bratemba was there, Temba Mkize was there.
I see.
Yeah, and when they came to Zimbabwe, I joined the group with Louis Mhlanga, and Brad Duke was there.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was, you know, woodshedding and trying things, and then he says, "I'm going to tell Bra Winston about you." I said, "Okay, cool." You know, at least, but you know, I felt, okay, then maybe I'm doing something that someone can hear.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I remember he says, "Yeah, you know, we're playing this music, but when I was in Spirits Rejoice, you know, he was Tabo Mashishi was playing trumpet.
Yes.
So he used to say, I used to give this boy monsters, you know, like in terms of the lines they had to play."
Okay.
But yeah, so on that show, I mean, I was sitting in the chair, and there was Brad Duke, and he took a solo, you know, during the show, and it was...
was that the first and last time you...
I never saw him after that.
I
I never saw him after that, because the guys came home from after Bua, and then, yeah, I stayed in Zimbabwe. So
now, earlier on, you spoke about Botswana. Most of us know that you have a deep relationship
yes.
with Botswana. How did that happen?
Well, you know, after my music degree, I refused to go to the army. So I told my mother that I'm not going. And she said, "Oh, are you sure?" You know, she's a mother figure. She says, "You've got a nice call up to Voortrekker Hoogte, which is now Tabatswane." I said, "No, I'm not going to let that uniform touch me. I don't want it." So I left the country. And the thing is that how it used to be in those days, if they called your name at the station, because they used to say, "Okay, you must report to Pietermaritzburg station at such a date." And
No questions asked.
no questions asked. But now, before that happened, my mother wrote and said, "He's out of the country." And then they would write back and say, "Okay, please tell us where he's staying now." And she would keep quiet. Then the next year they would do the same thing, which meant now that I wasn't AWOL. They weren't looking for me.
I see.
Yeah, so I managed to keep my passport. But, you know, I mean, I was in Botswana, and it was so near and yet so far. But the great thing was that when I went out to Botswana, Bra Jonas was there. The first time I arrived in Botswana, we had a party for one of his daughters, you know,
wow.
and that was my introduction. I went over with that group Staple Diet. Yeah, so we toured. Yeah, there was 4 of us.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went in and we did that. It was like, yeah, just in a backyard in Botswana, and we played there.
Yeah,
First.
I'm just imagining. I can't imagine just deciding that I'm leaving.
Yeah.
How was that decision? Like, how easy or difficult was it?
You know, when you're young, you take chances, right?
Yeah.
I wish at my age now, maybe I should take more chances. But yeah, it was never a thing for me in Tunzi, you know. And at least I had my buddies in the band. They were my big friends. So we toured around Botswana for a couple of months, and then, you know, like financially it wasn't really working and stuff. Because how we would survive is that, you know, Botswana is very hot. And so what we would do is that we would say, hey, look, can we stay in... people said, okay, you can stay in this place for a month as long as you put in ceilings, you know. So we would put in ceilings, you know, with that very scratchy fiberglass.
Yeah.
And it's hot in Botswana, but we used to put in ceilings and then be able to stay for a couple of months rent free in places. That's how we managed. But at some point they said that, look, it's not really working, and the 3 of them left. That's when back to South Africa. Yeah.
And you were left?
And then I was left. Then I felt quite alone. But there was the Culture and Resistance Festival that was coming up. Okay. That was in June. Yeah, 1984. No, it's not, because I went there 1982. It was 1982. And so I joined. Bragwangwa was the head of Medu music unit, and Medu was a cultural organization that involved photography, theater, music, dance, photography, all that. So it was a collective, and they asked me to come and help with organizing of that. And so we had a band with Bra Jonas in that called Shakawe.
Okay. Who else was in the band?
There was Rampulu Mulefe, who is a great keyboard player from Botswana, great composer. And later on, Tony Sidris came through from Cape Town and played with us. And Dennis Mpale came through a bit later and played with us. So that was the horn section with me, Bra Dennis, and Bra Jonas. And then we had other Botswana players. Tsulu fellow Gidi was playing drums, Bonjo Kipidile playing guitar, and the bass player Baba Hassan. We had various different players. So it was, we were always, you know, we always thought in terms of Medu. It was not meant to be just a South African exile collective, but it involved Botswana as well, you know. And even you see Bra Jonas, some of his songs, like that song Batsumi, I don't know if you know about, but he's pointing his finger at some Botswana who you know, regarded them as lesser people, you know. Babotswana, Batsumi.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Baba Setla, Botswana, Lidi Khuku. Yeah.
When I listen to the
different yeah. So Bra Jonas was someone really who, you know, he never made me feel like an outsider in any way, and that was quite amazing, you know. Yeah. So he was my father figure in exile. He was my father figure. I used to find myself sometimes sitting like him.
Oh no! Wow,
Yeah, Bra Jonas.
That's love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Brahu, was he there?
Brahu was there as well. Yeah. So he had the group Kalahari, and I remember like when Brahu first came into Botswana, I got invited to do a gig at the University of Botswana, and Mom Dorothy Masuko was there, and Mara Lowe was there, and Brahu, and that was just an amazing experience. That to play that, we were playing stuff like Skokian and Grazing in the Grass. Just it was just such a vibe. And Brahu, in terms of that feel, man, he's really got something that you feel. And so I used to go and also check out his rehearsals when he was building up that band Kalahari, because those were also my friends. Yeah. So it was really my growth in this tradition started really solidifying. And at the time, it was a great album. I think from that time, Brahu did that album called Home, and with that one song, Victor Antoni's song, what is it? Yeah, but a beautiful song. Sister Fania as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that album. And then later on, that the mobile studio that was based in South Africa came and parked in Botswana. And then that's when Brahu recorded that Mutlali Pula. And Kaifas, that Memotswali, he recorded in that mobile studio. I don't know why Bra Jonas missed the boat in terms of recording there, but
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
He later made up for it.
Yes, he did. But if you think of it, I remember Brahu said to him one day, he said, "How Jonas, are you going to die with all this music?"
Ooh, yeah, that must have sparked something.
Yeah.
And speaking about Sister Fania, we played it with him.
Oh.
With the school band, Brajonis.
Okay.
In Mredila Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were so in awe. Like,
yes.
We kept on missing the parts, and he was like, "Hey, you're not the audience here. You're part of the band.
You're meant to be playing."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a Hot Tape Galete song,
yes.
I think. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you later took your bags again and left for the UK.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that happened because, as I was playing in Shakawe, I was composing now, and I had music that I wanted to record. There were no recording studios really to speak of in Botswana. And so at some point I was also going up and playing with Jethro Shasha and the Jazz Survivors in Zim.
Okay.
Yeah, but basically I wanted to record, and there were not many options in Botswana. So I went to the UK with that intention that I want to record my music. But then now when you get there and you play with English musicians, and this is not these days where you have access to the internet, and you're able to listen to music from different parts of the world. This is kind of isolation. So when you think that, it's just easy for a drummer to sit on this thing, man, just sit on it. The feel was just not there. So even though I gravitated there, Becky was there, Seleku, around the Oval. So I kind of gravitated towards the South African musicians, but there wasn't enough, I didn't know enough to be able to have a South African band playing the music. So I did some recording in the UK, but I wasn't happy. So I spent about 7-8 months there, and then I came back to Zimbabwe, and that's where I recorded my first album.
Oh, I see. Did you ever
Southern
meet
Freeway?
Duty Pukwan?
Yes. Yeah, no, we met in London. There was an ANC, I don't know if it was Women's Day or whatever. Mm-hmm. So then we went to Dudu Pukwane's place, and Becky was playing and Brad Jonas and myself, and I don't know and who else on horn. And so we do the rehearsal and it sounds great. And on the day, then we meant to go to the gig, and Brad Dudu says, I'm not going to this. And then no one was surprised.
What? Really?
Yeah, I don't know what the problem was, but all of a sudden, switched.
Oh, it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no. He got pissed off with something, and he said, I'm not going to the gig. So I've rehearsed with him, but never played on stage with him.
Oh, man, but how was he like person to person?
Crazy, I can't say crazy, because if you listen to how he plays, he's definitely not crazy. But he did his own thing. I mean, he was not somebody, when he came and he did his things his way all the time.
Wow.
That's how I know him.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, from listening to him, I can tell what you're talking about.
Mm.
Now, one other relationship you had, close relationship, if I might say, was with the late Mr. Oliver Mtukudzi. How do you remember your first meeting with him?
Well, we first met, I think, because we had the same record company. It was RTP Records. So I had recorded my first album, Southern Freeway, and he was at the record company as well. And he was listening to the album, and he said, I like that song. That song was something that I recorded for just as Bokani was born. It's called BA from Durban Way, because it's Bokani Andrew is the name. So
I see. I couldn't connect the BA.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah. Yes. So he said no, he liked that song, and I was struck by sometimes musicians, they're only worried about their own things, but Tugu would listen to everything, and he was he used to play all over, I mean, and it wasn't just Tugu, it was Thomas Mapfumo too. And I really the first time I got to know about the Zimbabwean sound was when I was still in Botswana, and Thomas Mapfumo came with his band, and we did a tour around. I can't remember which band I was on. We did a tour around Botswana, and I thought, man, this sound is just something else. I've never heard something like this. And then I went up to Zimbabwe, and I find these cross rhythms, and I would see the guitarist, maybe he was, tapping in 4/4 time, and I was only hearing the thing in 6/8.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking, where's this guy, So it took me time to really get familiar with that thing, I think if you look at it, the Bapedi have a similar thing, not quite the same, but as you go up north, those cross rhythms start getting quite hectic. And but Oliver was also, he was playing, popular music as well. But you immediately struck by his voice. So even before I met him, I remember when I was in my final year in Howard College in Durban, we took a trip up to Zimbabwe through then Swaziland. And I was with this guy with long hair and a beard, and Africa, the motherland on here. I was saying, hey, this country's changed now, because this was 1981, 1982. And I listened to the music then, and then I can very definitely remember Tugu was played a lot on the stations there. And you just pick up the sound of his voice immediately, The thing about it is that, for me, some of the recordings there, quality-wise, were not great in those times. So I think, as time developed, his real star quality, I think, came out with later recordings where it sounded, the production was better.
Would you say your time with Mr. Mtukudzi inspired or gave you a template for later recordings, like how you compose
music? I think, but it wasn't a conscious thing, you know. But it's because I stayed there for so long. I had the group Southern Freeway, and that was mainly with guys from Bulawayo. So that was mainly Nguni inspired. We weren't playing many of these. We did something kind of with the Shona rhythms, but it wasn't that deep Mbira thing. But because I was there listening a lot to Thomas, listening to Oliver, and so many others, Four Brothers, there were many bands around, great bands. And I think that's the thing in Tunzi, that to be true to yourself, these things have to come. You've got to assimilate them, imbibe them. You can't just start thinking, okay, now I like that rhythm, now I'm going to play it. It's got to come naturally. So I do find, yes, that I think has influenced me in terms of the way sometimes I lay a rhythm. But then, you know, I'm not from there, so I'm me. I've got to put my own personal voice on how I interpret that.
Your life story, bro, Steve, one day it doesn't make justice. What you later came up with the group? Oh no! Firstly, Southern Freeway was your debut album.
Yes, yeah.
Were you able to take the band across the border to South Africa?
Yes, yeah. So I made that album Southern Freeway, and then some of the guys that I was playing with, we made the group called Southern Freeway, and then we came down we played at the Rainbow in Durban or Pinetown, and we went to Cape Town. We played at when they were having this referendum. There was a referendum about do the light people in this country want change or whatever. So yeah, we played at the Rainbow. So we did some touring around here, and we played at Softtown. You remember there was a club called Softtown in downtown Joburg. It was a nice club, yeah. And Andile was with us at that time. Yeah, so Andile, he joined Southern Freeway because I went to study briefly in Durban, I think around 1993. That's when I met Andile and Faya and a lot of others, Lex Fushani and others. Yeah, so we did come down and play here.
Another big part of your life was when you created Mahube. You remember the first time you thought of the idea?
Yes, well, when I had come down from Zim back to South Africa, okay, so freedom was in the air. But then I went to record shops. There was no Zimbabwean music, nothing, And so I had been exposed to all these like regional sounds from Botswana and from Zimbabwe and all that. And I thought, no, man, why are we letting these borders really break us down and fragment us? So there was this guy called Thomas Petz. He was a German promoter. And I can't quite remember how we first got together, but anyway, he was doing a festival out of Africa and Germany. So basically Mahube started because I had funding to fund like two weeks of rehearsal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's when we brought together and yeah, I had this idea that let's bring together and make a regional thing so that we explore the sounds across these borders within Southern Africa. Yeah.
You took the band around the continent also.
Yeah, well, not really around the continent. We took it. We went to Swaziland, we went to Botswana, we went to Mozambique, we went to Zambia. So we didn't get much further up, unfortunately.
I see.
But yeah, we had some good times around this area, and then went to Europe on a couple of occasions.
Okay. So, any more band ideas that you still have?
Well, Bokani came to me, and that's why we rekindled Mahube recently. So we did a new recording for Mahube called Zenzele a couple of years ago. And I think we'll do something more. It's now with different people, the younger set. Yeah, almost completely. So who was in this was Mbuso Khoza, Sia Makuzeni, Shishel Langa from Mozambique, Hope Masike from Zimbabwe. So basically the structure of the show is that there were 4 featured artists. Okay. And then we build the band around that. And we try to get those artists to represent different places. It would be great to involve all the countries, but I suppose logistically that's just something that...
are some of the original members still around?
Yeah, no, because like in the original there was Andile, there was Pinda, Matlala, there was Sutukazi Arosi, Feya, Becky Khoza was there sometime in the very beginning, Barry Van Sale, and then after that we had Sam Matore. So it's basically, Mahube has never been for me a set group of musicians. It's just been a concept.
Oh, okay, so the personnel can change.
The personnel can change as long as the concept. I thought when I did it, like this was 1997, I thought that, hey man, this is the start of many of these kind of collaborations. But now I look 20 years later and there's very few that's really happened. So I thought, well, there must be something there. So I think the Mahube thing can continue, man. Maybe we'll have to invite you the next time.
It would be great. It would be an honor. Now, do you have any advice how to keep a band? How do you deal with different personalities?
Yeah, look, I sometimes say to people that, band leading is actually people management. Yes, the music is there, but it's how you treat the people. I think there are different leadership styles. I think that there's some musician leaders that are dictators, and I think they should be called out for that, and no one does because everyone's very polite. But there is this thing called how much consensus do you bring in the band. So my style, if I'm leading a band or directing, is always to try and look for consensus, and always to try and make the musician feel that they're offering something. I don't want to bring somebody on stage and then they don't get a chance to solo or show what they've got. So I think that's what I like to do, and always try and treat the musicians with respect and treat them well. Because I think, there's a lot of stories that our musicians are impossible, and that in my experience, musicians are impossible when they're not treated well, and that happens so much of the time. So I think it's a combination of that, but also pre-planning. It's like, for example, Mahube, because there are people in different parts of the world, of the region, it's very hard for you to get a sufficient budget for them to come for a good period of time. Yes. So you have to prepare, like what is our program, send them the music, because sometimes when we've done shows and big shows, we've had 2 days to rehearse or something. So it's that pre-planning and getting your structure sorted out, then things can move smoothly.
I see. Most of the bands you've had, was it only you who came up with the concept, or is there a band where you had a co-leader, if I might say that?
Well, I think in order to lead, you have to be able to follow. So mostly it has been things that I have conceptualized, because
alone.
Yes. So I don't think that I've maybe found that somebody that can really, that really in my generational group, okay, that we really could have formed a band and we had a similar vision and all this. I think that even within Mahube, people like Andile or Feya, they were there, but you know, they also had their own vision of what they wanted to do. So I don't think during my growth that I ever found somebody that I could complement with and really build something together with, which is maybe a pity.
Now, why I'm asking that question is that most of the time you come up with an idea for a band and later there's power struggles. So I wanted to get if you've ever experienced that.
Yes, power struggles. Not really power struggles, but just dissent sometimes. You know, like I think it's you know that you've led bands, right? Or you,
if you
yeah, and no matter what you do, sometimes if the energies are not the same, it's the energy of the people. If someone's there but they don't feel they really want to be there, or they think, oh, well, I'm just working for that guy, but you know, it's his thing, and yeah. So where do I fit in? I'm not really comfortable, but I'll be here because I've been asked to be here. You know, it's that kind of thing. Whereas if I get called to someone else's gig, I'll treat that as importantly as if it's my own. And I think that's an important work ethic to have. It's like whatever you do, just give it your all.
Well, thank you for that, Steve. The last question.
I know you do that in whoever you play with, and I respect that.
Thank you. One last question. Looking back at your younger self, is there any advice you'd like to
give myself?
Yeah.
I would have liked to work harder when I was younger at university, you know. Yeah, I would have liked to, and I think the unfortunate thing for me was that, you know, Darius Brubeck and that whole jazz and popular studies came in the year after I left. Ooh. So I didn't have that chance. So a lot of the stuff in terms of like jazz harmony and stuff, I had to figure out on my own. And it was really tough in a barren place like Botswana musically, to try and gain that knowledge. And even in Zimbabwe, you know, was pockets of people that were playing the improvised thing. But, you know, so when you listen to a cassette of John Coltrane and you're trying to work it out on your own, but you don't have many people to spin those things off and grow collectively. Yeah. You know, and that's why I'm really, you know, overjoyed at what's happened in South Africa now, and the young generation like you and everyone else. I mean, this is one of the success stories of the democratic South Africa. But I see how much you guys learn from each other. And at some point I was just poor little Steve on his own trying to figure out stuff. So yeah, maybe that would have been good to have had a more expansive like relationship with other people. However, when you have to discover things on your own, then you tend to do things your way. And then I think that helped me with getting a personal voice. But I still would have liked more of a community to work around.
I see. Impressive. The conversation continues. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
For your
yes,
time.
You're good at this, you know. Yeah, I think you can. Is this your side hustle from how?
Yeah. COVID hustle.
COVID.